Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to get into the sixth of our series, The Essence of NESARA. Now, some of you ask when you watch maybe one of these videos, and you go, well, what about the other elements? By the way, I'm piecing out the elements. This is only one section of it, okay? This is those with debt and those without debt. So I kind of go through some of those areas, and then we'll hit you a couple videos, okay? Actually, I'm going to hit you with a video up front, and you're missing. Sometimes when you think that Trump isn't gonna put NESARA out there, and I literally had a big name author that I talked to, and he said, "Well, NESARA will never happen." He is actually foundational to the killing of the Fed. It's a fascinating conversation out there that I had. I'm not going to say who it is because I really don't want to run him down with that too. But it's what most people are not hearing with that too. Listen to this little clip right here first.
Fourth, at the suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice. Smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now.
Wait a second. If he's going to have drastic reforms, what does that do to us? Let's talk about that a little bit more as we bring this up here, okay? So again, this is the essence of NESARA, those with and without debt. And by the way, I have never sold and never will sell QFS crypto. I'm going to do a video about that here in very short time frame because so many people are hearing the lie. It is not me. Go to drscottyoung.com to find out exactly who you're talking to, okay? Okay. So part one, what's the problem here? When we look at this, use my glasses, sorry. This is the personal savings to the income rate of people. So we're talking about this little percentage. And if you can't see that, it's basically 12.5%, 17.5% down to zero, okay? So when we talk about in the 60s, people were sitting at, 10 to 12% all the way through about the early to about mid 70s, right? And then the savings started dropping off. What happened here at this time frame when they were, kind of going up and then it started dropping down? Inflation started to eat away. Inflation always eats savings, okay? So what happens is that it eats it farther. Even through the Reagan era, we're having less and less savings because they were trying to focus on more and more spending. Then through the 90s, this is the educational program that was telling you to buy, buy, buy. This was part of commercialism. And so commercials, education leads to this. And to the early 2000s, we have it drop off a further debt point, a further amount. Well, that would be 9/11 because it's started to eat into it. Now, here's what happens. It goes up until about into the financial crisis, the Great Recession, and it drops again right around. So Obama gets a little boost here. But it's not because of anything. That means people were holding back the money, which is real interesting why they were doing that. It drops again, and then it boosts right in Trump's time frame. How in the world? See, Obama tried to say he was responsible for this. Wait a second. If you're responsible for that, how come in your era it goes up and then goes down a little bit? Now it goes up a little bit more, right? In Bush era, it goes down dramatically, right? So he was better than in Bush era, but how come Trump went up dramatically? And only in obviously 2020, it falls off a cliff. Now we don't see 2022 and 23 exactly, but it's down dramatically. And if we were seeing 24, it would be down in the toilet here with that too. Okay. Consumers' debt. Now, but this is slightly old when you realize this. Um, Through 2011, when debt was really bad, this is when people were falling off the cliff on this. This is just credit card debt. It is nowhere near as bad as it is today. You think the economy is going to be okay just because Trump comes back on up in office, and the answer is no. It's got to be fixed. This is why you who talk about, well, those people with debt, they're just that how should we say this? People with debt, they have been just using their money incorrectly. And the answer is that means everyone has been using their money incorrectly. No, there's something external happening here. When you actually look at consumer spending on goods, what happens in 2023, they're spending a dramatic amount on experiences, but then it drops further all the way. So this is in the beginning of 23, and then it drops to really critically low levels. So people are spending less and less, a little bit more on the goods and less on experiences, which means that um, uh, vacation and other kinds of travel things are telling you the economy is in really bad shape when you see this Q4 of 2024. That means people are sitting inside of themselves. We were talking to a Gen Z person, and do you know that most Gen Zs are very, very afraid? They would rather die than just keep going. It's a scary circumstance of how nihilistic they feel about their situation. To pay bills and keep a certain standard of living. This is what's happening here. We see a couple weird circumstances. So it takes 10% and then it goes up hugely around, obviously, the pandemic kind of thing, right? It comes up here and we have major screw ups in personal savings rates. So it was really high and then it drops dramatically. Now it spikes a little bit more, and this is some of the payback money that was coming, but then they stole it right again. And so we are down to critical levels right now. I mean, people's savings and their living abilities are in ugly areas that there's no answers for. When we also look at the deficit spending, they're spending so much more on deficit that it's too difficult to know. And here's the thing: income tax and payroll taxes and corporate taxes, they're down into critical levels. Why? Because not very many people are paying their taxes. Ooh, ooh. Department of Defense, the DoD, was a huge amount of spending in the past, and now it's dwarfed by the deficit. When Trump is telling you about this situation, and he's saying we're going to have a government program to figure out, I mean, to say this is not going to happen anymore. That's NESARA, guys. That is bringing this thing fully in line. You're going to be surprised. And here's the other thing. One of the things that we also know is that you have to fund in, or it's called refund into Social Security, so that it doesn't become a deficit. When you take these two things away and you go, how does that ever happen? That's what those funds are about. The Rodriguez Fund, we have the monies that are taken from the billionaires who are the criminals. Okay, and if you listen to one of my billionaires and Epstein one, you'll understand that's Executive Order 13818. They're taking that money away. So when you put that kind of money back in the government, and that they're not paying for interest payments either, and frankly, the only thing that would be spending on is Medicare and Medicaids, those things you still have to pay for. But if you make people in a better position, you're spending less on this, so that you can spend on defense and other kinds of things, all the other kinds of really powerful outlays that you need to do, right? But would have the capability of doing without going into debt. And see, this money here won't be spent anyway, So what happens is government will shrink. Okay, cool stuff. Okay. Now, when you look at the federal debt issues, I'm a little bit low on that one. Probably it's 35, pushing on 36 trillion, versus in 2020, it was 28 trillion. And by the way, in 1980, in one of the worst time frames for the budget issues, which people will tell you, oh my gosh, interest rates were really high. Hey, listen, it wasn't even a trillion. The federal spending is 6.6 trillion and versus in 2020 5.7. Look, this is what happens when freaks get a hold of the budget, right? They're spending like, drunken sailors. Okay. The federal deficit has gone up. It was 2.5 trillion here, so it was bad, right? Because that was the COVID stuff. And then it's still running in ugly areas. This should be way lower than that. It should be almost next to nothing, right? So the IRS in 2020 was at $2.1 trillion. Now, when you put the idiots in charge, it's $4.8 trillion. And by the way, less and less people are giving into this anyway, and yet it's still higher because they're trying to steal from you here with that too. The gross domestic product went from 23 to 28 trillion. That's when they say that it's better. It's only because people are having to spend more because everything costs more with that too. So when you have the debt to GDP, that's the gross domestic product. From 2020, it's 120%. This is when I actually got fired by a broker who had been with for 14 years before, because I said, America can't live on this. Now we're at 135. I think we're probably higher. In 1980, we're at 35%. It was an ugly thing. And then listen to moron here. This is Janet Yellen, is the Treasury chairman with that too. And listen to her, talk about her stupidity here.
Americans, both those who are well off and those who are near the bottom of the income distribution, are better off now. Their wages have risen more than prices.
She's stupid, okay? And that's why you can't listen to gaslighters, because you know the truth, and the world knows the truth with that too. Okay, so those who are in debt and those who are out of debt. So I tried to show you the debt situation is untenable in every way, shape, and form. Don't tell me about how I don't have any debt, kind of thing. And well, I don't have any debt, so those other people, they should have just been better with their money. And the answer is all people are struggling in this area, and it would affect you too if they all go down. So stop being real narcissistic on that viewpoint with that too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that kind of area. Statements made with about those who are without debt. First off, those people, this is really kind of cool. They tend to be goal-driven individuals. They're on a budget. Everyone, when we fix the debt crisis, and by the way, we are going to fix the debt crisis. That's what NESARA is about. And many of you can't understand that, but all that stuff will be fixed. But people will have to focus on their budget. They're shrewd. They don't fall for marketing manipulations. If you're in debt, I want you to read these. I want you to write these down, because this is something you need to focus on. See, too many people are telling you you're going to get millions and millions of dollars. You're going to get tens of thousands of dollars, whatever the point is that they're saying, whether it's a monthly or a part-time basis. And I'm like, stop. That has no macroeconomic sense here. You need to understand what a budget is. You need to start being shrewd with, against the marketing manipulations with that too. You need to be disciplined, because when you are disciplined, you stay within your budget and you modify your needs based upon what your budget tells you with that too. And very few Americans are not very materialistic. And that's one of the things that those without debt have found a way to do this. We need to learn from these people. By the way, you who are without debt, you can be the teachers. But stop being sanctimonious here, okay? I'm trying to tell you the cool things that you're doing. But when you drop the sanctimonious nature, what you will find is that you can be helpful in this process because many of the other people who are in debt can learn from this stuff, okay? It also, these people also are very patient. They put off new purchases until they have the affordability in their savings. So they got plenty of savings to be able to pay for that kind of thing. They understand value. Those are people who are, and some people call them thrifty or penny pinchers, and that's really not the case. And I'm not even, I don't even want to, get into that particular thing. The reality is you need to understand what value is and stop spending on non-valuable things, which is part of the non-materialistic nature with that too. Okay. So here's what's you're going to see, because by the way, I hear this all the time. Well, I don't have any debt, so I'm not going to benefit from NESARA. I hear that so much of the time, it makes me kind of crazy. Here's what I want you to understand. All people are going to see a benefit from them. So if you are those who have debt and you're going to be released from the debt, well, obviously you're going to see it'll create some happiness and confusion. Like, what happened? You're going to, that's what a lot of those people are going to say. They're like, wait, what just happened? Now, if you know about the NESARA, you already get it, but most of the people are not going to get it. So those of you who are in debt and have been released from debt and you already know about it, help the friends and family around you understand what occurred here. Now, how do they handle the paperwork without understanding what happened? What I'm telling you there is a slightly different concept there. You're going to have things like titles. The titles will come. That's the paperwork, right? The titles will come back to you because, by the way, when a debt is paid off, like you pay off a car, the bank is required to give that title to you. Don't freak out about this. Don't listen to the idiots that say that can't happen or the bank would then steal it. They are not allowed to, even in this criminal time frame that we've been living in, and especially post NESARA. I mean, I tell you, the paperwork is gonna be okay. Understand, it takes a little time for the car and those other titles to come back to you with that too. Many of those people have not been on a budget. Get on a budget. They don't also have much in savings. They need to learn from people who are out of debt and understand how to start saving money with that too. They need a plan for savings, not just start saving, but make a plan, putting $100 away or whatever that might be. I mean, my gosh, if people were putting $25 into savings, I mean, after a year, you got, what, $2,000? That's way better than a lot of people have ever had in their savings account if they would just start with $25 kind of thing. And that's even skipping it a month, right? $2,000, it would be $2,400. Guys, start doing some of that. It's very simple to do, even though you feel like you can't. I bet you could come up with $25, and that could really save you in a lot of ways. That new debts, new house, how will credit work? We're going to get into this in the future, but there is a plan called the Rule of 78. First off, when we try to look at new things that, like, someone is out of debt, what will happen when we try to go buy a house? How will credit work? Well, credit's not going to have, the credit scores are not going to have any meaning because no one has any debt, and they're based upon debt to income ratios. So you won't be able to utilize that. How will the banks do it? They will be talking about someone's budget to be able to afford that house. It'll change people. Now, the Rule of 78 is paying the interest of not compound interest. That's going to go away. A simple interest form that the bank gets paid back first. And frankly, that's a good thing. The bank needs to be incentivized who gives you that very, very cheap, amount of money, because it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be super cheap. But they need to be paid back, and that's the only right thing to do in that circumstance. Debt is not a vehicle to get ahead in life. Savings is going to be that way. And the people who are in debt, if you are in debt, I want you to copy these things down in your life and start to study them. Start to pull out a book, whatever that meant. Like you could pull out a notebook, right? And start to write down information about it so that you understand how to take care of this kind of thing, right? Well, let's talk about those who have lived without debt. Now, they might have a little bit of debt. You might have some on credit card and just get paid off. That's cool, right? But those people tend to pay their monthly items. They might pay their monthly items on credit card and then they pay it off. I do that a lot. I mean, I've done that. I have some debt, but I don't have very much debt because I've learned over the years is to pay off. Put something on a credit card and then just pay it off at the end of the month. Put it on the credit card and pay it off at the end of the month. I've known how to do that. I think that's really powerful with that too. Those people tend to have savings and understand what backstopping is. Backstopping is saying, I'm only going to use that if there's an emergency. But see, sometimes to help you out, and I'm going to pull this thing off the screen for half a second here, because I want you to listen to me. One of the things that I have done, and I do this specifically with my business, but you can do this on a personal level as well if you struggle with your savings, okay? One of the things that I have done is, before I understood the IRS and everything else, I have a tax savings that I would put aside. You see, when tax time comes around, you could be freaking out about that tax savings, or you could have a tax savings. How about savings for instance, if I want to buy out another business? What about savings for a new office that I'm going to put together? You see, you can set up a little savings account. You can have a whole bunch of different savings account, name them different things, put the moniker in your bank account, and you will have bank accounts with the QFS. The QFS is a window into all of your financial areas. Okay? But what you can do is have different savings with different things in there, and they're building up until you have enough money to be able to purchase that particular thing. It's a cool way of looking at that with that too. Oops, sorry, did the wrong screen there. Okay, these people always are on a budget. They're very patient with their purchases. Now I know I said that over here, but that's what those people tend to do. Now, if they wish to upgrade, one of the things that's going to be happening, it's going to be a lot easier. Do you know something interesting? Again, we talked about there's not going to be any more compound interest, and there's not going to be a front loading of interest, but it will be a front loading of interest of the simple interest on a small basis, which is called that rule of 78. But did you know something fascinating? If you have not ever really used credit, you have no credit score, and they won't give you credit if you did need it. That's how sick the system is. That's just what it actually is about with that too. Money will finally be seen as valuable. And so guess what? Those who have lived without debt need to be the teachers of those who are with debt when we see this thing change over. Okay. And so I'm trying to give you a little bit of background and understanding. The debt thing has to get fixed. But then Trump put this might sound like a non sequitur kind of video, but I want you to hear this and then I'll talk about it here, okay? Fascinating video that he put out there with this. And he's going on all these different broadcasts that are smaller kinds of ones, bigger than me, okay? I would love to have President Trump. If you're listening, President Trump, come on with me. I'll come on. I'll figure out a way to do it. I mean, I'd love to have it, and he can have the stage, whatever. But listen to this guy talk about something fascinating, and Trump is not taken unawares by this. Listen to it.
They've been
The funding, stuff like that. And you have been doing some stuff with taxes. Now, I did a little bit, and I'm not a mathematician, but I did a little bit of checking. One of the things, one of the policies, like, would you consider thinking about for our veterans, for those who serve, for those who are police department, to where their taxation is the fact that they're giving their bodies to this country instead of having to pay taxes? None of these cities want to give them raises, so at least let them keep their money.
You know, I've never heard that before, and it's like a very interesting thing. It's the kind of thing you would think of, right? Because they have been treated so terribly.
It's going to take more than a hug. We need to, and here's the deal. If you're looking at serving in this country, in the military, or a police officer, or a firefighter, and you're young and you're coming up, and you don't have to pay taxes because you're paying, it's almost an incentive to where we can get people interested.
And other countries do that, as you know.
Yeah.
Other countries do that.
Of course they do.
In spades. Yeah, it's something I would think about. You know, it's something that
By the way, do you understand? He already knew other countries. That's why he's trying to say, well, it's a unique way the guy said it, right? That Tyrus said it. So that was cool. But Trump actually has an answer. Other countries actually do that. Listen to what he says then next.
nobody ever brought up. I've never heard it. It's interesting you're bringing it up. You're like my tax person there. But yeah, I mean, something has to be done.
Yes.
And we have
And
to
I
attract
think you're the
people.
president to do it.
Well,
Oh, guys, I know. There's two levels of this. Number one, this guy Tyrus brings up a unique point about not taxing police officers, and Trump doesn't, deflect where a lot of other people would deflect in a very heavy way. If you set that in front of Kamala, she would just go, "Yeah, we should do that," but no actual plan, right? No actual thought in their head. That is a disclosure level thing. Don't think that isn't a level of disclosure that could be coming out. No one is going to have that. Oh, it's mind-blowing when you realize it, guys. Guys, listen, if you have debt, you need to listen to the people who don't have debt. Let me say it again. If you have debt, you need to start paying attention to, going out to lunch with, asking how these people who have lived without debt in a debt society, how have they done it? You who don't have debt need to have some compassion on those who have had debt. Because when this thing releases, stop talking about fairness in this way. Start leading. I'm calling you out. That's what part of my job is I want to help you, to lead you into this role. But you need to be, I can't do all of it. You got to do it. You have to lead your communities, to tell people, listen, I can help you understand how to budget, because you guys have wisdom that the people who are without debt or with debt don't get. Do you see it? On drscottyoung.com, you can go down here on the bottom of the screen, go to drscottyoung.com. You can download a 13-page article that gives you a lot of information about NESARA if you're not seeing all the essence points within it. Thanks so much.